what's up? Hello. I hope you all are doing well. Thanks for bearing with me while I have been gone for a few months now. I am doing a lot better. I'm feeling a lot better, and just needed to sort of take a break, and I am back and the world continues to go on somehow. I don't know how, but it does, and I'm excited to share with you, wearing my fabulous New York Public Library t-shirt, the dismal amount of reading that I got up to in the second quarter of 2020. So while everything in my life has been shaken like a snow globe, I did not get to a lot of the reading that I had originally anticipated for this first half of the year. But the first book I read was Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. Apt, timely, and also quite interesting, by Emily Nagoski and her sister Amelia Nagoski. I enjoyed this book. It was interesting. I appreciated the science that was in it. I appreciated the references. I will say that it is written in an accessible sort of like pop psychology style, which is fine as long as that's backed up by valid research, which it is. However, the way that this is done is with a lot of sort of amalgams of folks that both these ladies are sisters, the amalgams of people that they have spoken to and the challenges that those people have faced, which is fine. But what it does is to take those experiences and sort of distill them down into like, here are the takeaways from this book. And that counterbalanced with the amount of research that you know has gone into it, and sort of just like the unnecessary littering in of different experiences from both of the authors, which, while I understand need to be well grounded in order for the book to have credibility, the amount of times that they're mentioned and the types of conversations that they have with these amalgams of people are a little bit distracting. Also, Emily Nagoski, again in this book, just like her other book, has tried to really use her word to cherry pick the science that she shares in here to include only what will be most useful or most beneficial for folks. And that kind of bothers me a little bit, not because I want to read something that's not useful, but because it feels very boiled down past accessible language and sort of into just like skating over the bare minimum of what needs to be said in order to make the chapter work. So I appreciated the content. I did appreciate the fact that there are notable takeaways, but I felt we went from the beginning of the book to the end of the book and got almost less and less relevant or apt. It does come with like worksheets and exercises that you can do and a very long appendix of references, which is great. So that's kind of fun. This book is primarily focused toward women, and I would probably add to that white cis-het women. If this sounds like something you're keen to pick up, I would give it a try. I would be interested to hear what other folks think of this author's writing. So in this past quarter, after I read Burnout, I didn't really have the motivation to read anything I hadn't already read before. And so the first thing that I reread was Mindy Kaling's Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me, which I have done an okay review of on this channel if you want to go have a look at that. This is her first book, I think from like 2012 or 13. Still very interesting. It definitely feels a little bit dated now, especially some of the photos in it. Like you could just tell that they were taken with like a point and shoot camera. It's fascinating. Or like a BlackBerry or something. The world moves so fast. But it was great to just read this. She has a very like calming, comforting type of tone of just like your cool, witty, hip best friend, which is probably what she's going for. So I reread this. I also happen to own her second book, Why Not Me, which I believe I've also reviewed here if you want to learn more about that. I remember not liking Why Not Me quite as much as Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me when I first read it, and looking back I'm not really sure why. Having read it again, I'm really not sure why. There's a different tone to it for sure, different types of stories, but all still that same voice, just like brought into a new time frame and a new like where we're heading as a society. So I didn't enjoy as many of the essays in this one, but I think the ones that I did enjoy, I enjoyed equally as much. And then I listened to the audiobook of Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. I am very eagerly awaiting the third book in this series. Bex gave me the first book in a paperback copy for Christmas a couple years back, and I absolutely adored it, and I've read it and Wondersmith, which is the second book, a couple times, and while I was not doing great, I wanted to really look at what the difference between having read that book and having listened to it would be, and I'm really glad that I listened to it because it's just sort of interesting to hear somebody put voices to those characters, and they have like magical music in between each chapter. It was like really just sort of fun, relaxing to listen to that story. That being said, now I'm waiting on the third book, and I don't know if I can get the whole from the library because we're not doing books being passed around between libraries anymore, so I'm crossing my fingers I'll be able to read this third book, Hollowpox, soon when it comes out. It's my understanding that these Morgan Crow books are going to be a 6-part series, and so maybe once I read the first 3 I'll do a little halfway point review of them, but for now you can know that I love these stories. The more I read them, the more I really see where she's influenced by certain elements of Harry Potter, if I can go so far to say that. But they're just delightful. I love Morgan's tone. I love Hawthorne. Jupiter is a fascinating character, and I'm growing to like him less and less as I continue to reread these books. But all of it is just magical and lovely, and if you want a middle grade book and you haven't read these for any reason, I would suggest it. So the last book that I read in the second quarter was actually a book that I had been reading since March, but I did finish it in June, and that is Make Your Home Among Strangers by Janine Capel-Crusett. And this was the last book that I had assigned for my library book club. We haven't gotten the chance, obviously, to meet to talk about it, but this is about a young woman who comes from Miami, and she is of Cuban heritage, and she's the first one in her family to attend college, and she winds up being accepted to a very small private liberal arts college up in upstate New York, which is very different from the climate and just the society that she is used to, and so she goes there, and this book is about both the ramifications in her own family of leaving them and going far away and pursuing a different type of dream than they would have originally picked out or would have expected for her, and also her struggles with being a non-white person and one of few people who is not white at a very primarily fancy, rich, white school. This book got a little bit of buzz, I think late last year, earlier this year. I would need to double check. The author came to speak at a university campus somewhere in the US, and I guess folks burned copies of her book in protest because they didn't like what she had to say about systemic racism or systemic oppression in higher education, which just really proves all the points that she makes in this book over and over again. This is really interesting to read. It's great to read right now because you're getting another perspective of someone whose experience might be very different from yours. This is a really great book. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. I think the main character, Lisette, goes through a lot of struggles in just the way that she tries to present herself to people that she considers friends. She's very mixed up about almost everyone in her life, and with good reason. She's being pulled in a lot of directions. People are really not communicating with her, and she's not communicating well with them. I'll do a longer review probably about this book later on, but for anyone who had what they might consider like a typical or normal or traditional college or university experience as a white person, I think this is a really important book for us to be reading. But I will say this is one of those books that does not use quotation marks, which I both love, like really love, and I also can't stand. So know that before you go in. And with that, those are the books that I read or at least finished in the second quarter. I am aiming to read and finish far more books in the third quarter, recognizing that we're already very well into July. But what can you do? The wheel of time turns on. If you've read any of these books and want to have further chats about them, please do leave us a comment down in the comment section below. Everything that you want to know about us is in the description. I hope you're having lovely weeks and lovely lives. Thanks as always so much for watching, and we'll see you very soon.